Good afternoon or good morning, Year 10, depending on when you are listening to this. I hope you're all well and having a lovely and thrilling week. Next week is the half term. Woo woo! You get a whole week without a tutorial from me. I bet you're thrilled. So this week, nice big push on your work. You've got obviously what's left of today to complete this. You've got all of tomorrow. You're not expected to do it over half term if you want to. I don't have a problem with that, but obviously there's no pressure, no expectation in you. You can just chill out and unwind during half term. And then I'm going to set the deadline for this for the Tuesday back after half term. So you'll still have 2 days after half term if you don't get it done tomorrow to complete this, okay? Because it'll be at the end of school on that Tuesday. So, to begin with, you are going to need your copy, whether that is your own actual book of Macbeth or whether it's a PDF that you can have open up on the screen next to you. Or if you printed the PDF version, another way of having it. So you're going to need that. You're going to need your classwork book. You're going to need a pencil, and you're going to need your brains. So first of all, open up your classwork book. I want Act 3, Scene 1 as our title and underlined. I want our subheading, Feelings and Macbeth's Next Betrayal. Ooh, what could it be? And I want today's date, Thursday, the 21st of May, 2020. I want you to write all of those 3 things down. You know how to do that. And I want you to underline them all with a ruler. Press pause here if you need longer to see that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now, this beautiful little image, I would like you to recreate in your classwork book. So, you are going to need over half a page, okay? You really need to think about the sizing and spacing. Don't make it insanely big, but you need to be able to write and draw inside this space. So you need there to be plenty of empty space that you can fill with writing and or drawings, okay? You want to try and get the face as even and as matched as possible. Once you've drawn the face, you're then going to go right to the centre of it and draw a line right down the middle. You are going to choose, I've done Banquo on the left, Macbeth on the right, but you can do it how you like. You can have Macbeth on the right, Banquo on the left, whichever is the opposite to what I've got. I forgot what I originally said. Okay, so all you need to do initially is to just draw, I mean you can add some hair to that drawing if you like, is to just draw a simple face. We don't need to worry about expressions or anything like that. It doesn't matter if the artistry isn't great. Okay, I just need the face drawn. I would say it's going to need to be at least bigger than half a page and a line straight down the middle. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but pause this if you want to keep that in front of you while you do that task. Now, as you know from the title, we are looking at Act 3, Scene 1. The opening of Act 3, Scene 1 is Banquo on his own, okay? Banquo gives us a monologue. So I want you to look at that. If you have your own book, then I want you to be ready to annotate and make some notes. If you don't have your own book, then I want you to, the quotes that I kind of pause on, that I talk about, that I discuss or ask you questions about, I want you to copy those down and I want you to add the little annotations to them. I'm not going to necessarily give you the annotations, but I'm going to kind of ask you questions or hints and prompt you into the kind of things that we want to be looking at. So, he starts, thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all. Opening line, quite simple. Think about it. Who's he talking about? Who has it all now? Who is now king? Who is Cawdor? Who is Glamis? Who's gone through that transition and that change? Okay, you know, make that note. As the weird women promised, who are the weird women? Okay, what's he referring to there? And I fear thou playest most foully for it. Okay, so he says, I fear. So we know he's either scared or concerned about something. Have a look at the rest of the line. Do we think it's actually fear, or do we think it's a concern? And what is it that he's afraid of or concerned about? Thou playest most foully for it. Oh, so thou placed most foully for it. What could have happened? What could that be in reference to? What could have been done that could be described as being foul? Where could we see something that would be just considered foul behaviour? If you think about somebody winning in a football match, but they only won because they did a foul tackle, okay, and then they made out that, you know, they got a little bit of a nick on the ankle when they was in the penalty box, but they threw themselves to the ground, rolling around, making out like they'd been absolutely sideswiped and managed to get the ref to award them a penalty. Have they won that game fair and square? No, they played foully for it, haven't they? So what could Banquo be referencing here? Yet it was said it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. Well, what is a root? What's that referencing? If you're the root of something, what are you? What happens from a root? And father of many kings. Can anyone remember the quote from earlier on in the play that Banquo is referencing here? What is he thinking about? What is he considering at this point? And if there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine. Why, by the verities on thee made good. So what's he talking about there? So he's saying, well, if there come truth from them, as upon thee. So if what they said to you came true, then why all the things that they said about me? Why shouldn't they come good as well? Why shouldn't they end up coming to fruition? And he says, may they not be my oracles as well? Oracles are people that predict things about your future, about your fortune. So he's saying, well, if they've told the truth about what was going to happen to you, what they said about me, where's the logic that that's not going to come true then? And set me up in hope. What's he starting to think or feel at that point? But hush, no more. Okay, and then we have other characters enter. So I want you to annotate that with the little hints and tips that I've given you in the questions. If you need longer, pause it here before we go on. But I want you to think about what I've been asking, what I've been saying, what's happening in that speech for the next task as well. So, Banquo and Macbeth. Banquo has seen both of the prophecies about Macbeth come true. And he's referenced that, hasn't he, in that little speech that we just read. He is both the Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland. Now, in that mask that you drew in your books a couple of minutes ago, okay, I want you to write on the Banquo side, or draw, depending on how you would prefer to present the information, of only on the Banquo side of the mask, how he feels at this point. So you may draw different kind of symbols or facial expressions to reference what you think he's feeling. You may draw images that represent his ideas, his thoughts, or you may use words to describe what have we got, what feelings has he got. So everybody's going to do that task. If you're one of my yellow learners, you're then going to move on and add on to this with the next task. You are going to make notes on whether it's an image or whether it's a word or a phrase that you've put down, and you're going to explain why you've put that down. As in, you're going to explain from the speech, you're going to take quotes from that little section of speech that we just read through and explain to me why that quote makes you think he feels or considers this. Okay? And then greens, you're going to have done what the reds and the yellows have done. And then you're going to evaluate. Okay, so that means explore and decide, why do you think Shakespeare might want his audience to know how Banquo feels at this point? What's the benefit? What are the reasons? What are the different reasons that Shakespeare could have for giving us a little insight into Banquo? And why have we got that insight into Banquo at this moment? Think about what has come before and think about what is soon to come. Why is it this moment do you think that Shakespeare chooses to give us this insight? Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. So if you want those tasks to stay up there so you know what you're doing, please press pause now. Okay, so as you'll see on this slide, I've put the little speech up again so you've got it in front of you while you do it. Now, red learners, you're going to match up the pictures at the bottom of the screen, okay? I'm not going to describe them, they're quite easy to see and to work out. And you are going to match them with key quote from this extract, okay? Just from that little section that's copied out at the top of the page. I want you to, in your book, you're either going to write a description of what the image is, or if you'd rather, you will draw your own version of the image, and then you will write next to it, you'll do an equals or a dash, and you will write next to it the quote from that extract that supports that. Okay, that's reds only. Okay, now yellows only. I want you to look at this speech again, and I want you to really think about, what does Banquo say? So where do we see jealousy? You're going to write jealousy in your book, and you're going to give me the quote or quotes for it. Okay, and you're going to tell me why and how does that show jealousy. You're going to find the quote or quotes that suggest a suspicion regarding Macbeth's actions. What's the key words or phrase in there? Why might Banquo be suspicious of Macbeth at this point? And you're going to see where the quote or quotes show us a sense that he is trying to suppress them. He's trying to kind of control and push down his thoughts or his ambition. Where do we see that? Okay, why does that quote suggest that that's what Banquo is doing? And the fact that Banquo is trying to suppress those ambitions or those thoughts, what does that tell us about him? Why is that interesting? Why does Shakespeare show us that? And then my greens and purples, sorry, because I know I've got some purples in there. So think about this. How does Banquo's attitude differ to Macbeth's about ambition? Refer to the key quotes, okay? So key quotes from this speech, but also key quotes from Macbeth. In order to do this, you're going to have to look back at Macbeth's speeches in Act 1, and you're going to have to compare. So I want you to give me quotes from this extract telling me, explaining, analysing what Banquo's attitude is. Okay, what's his attitude to ambition? What's his attitude to the prophecy? What's his attitude to the witches? You can also look at other speeches in Act 1 from Banquo as well to build on that. And then I want you to compare that with Macbeth. How do we see a difference between what we've seen from Macbeth in regard to those elements and what we've seen from Banquo? So look at them both separately and then make your contrasts. Okay, so you are going to have to look at lots more than just this extract, my greens and purples. Again, if you need this slide for longer to read that little extract from Banquo or to remind yourself what your task is, please press pause now because I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, in case you haven't annotated your extract enough, or in case when you first started writing those quotes down you haven't put quite enough detail in there, I do know there can be the temptation not to put as much detail in as we should. I've kind of put some key elements in here that I want to make sure you've got annotated in this little speech. So, in this brief soliloquy is where a character speaks to themselves and allows the audience to know their innermost thoughts. We've gone through that. We've talked about that in class quite a few times, but just in case you missed it where we put it in our vocabulary banks, I want you to go to your vocabulary bank and check that you do have the word soliloquy with the definition. If you don't, add it in now. Now you can see the purple bit highlighted matches this note. Okay, so Banquo reflects on Macbeth becoming Cawdor and king, just as the witches promised, but he thinks Macbeth most likely killed Duncan. Okay, so he says, "Thou hast it now, king, Cawdor, Grammy." So he's listing all of the things that Macbeth has and has it now. He's referencing the fact that it's come to pass. He didn't have it all straight away. And he says, all the weird women promised, so every prediction they gave has now come true. But, okay, this is where it twists a little bit with Banquo, because he says, and I fear thou playedst most foully for it. So we see that hint, don't we, that he knows the reaction that Macbeth gave when those witches gave that prophecy. He talks about immediately how enraptured he was. Okay, he saw that he was drawn to this prophecy. And Duncan's killed. Didn't just die in his sleep, he's murdered. He's murdered by his guards, who've always been loyal to him before now, and Macbeth is the one that kills the guards, slices their throat in a fit of grief and anger before they can be questioned, before they can be asked anything. And all of this happens in Macbeth's castle. And all of this happens in Macbeth's castle not long after these predictions. So, Banquo's not a fool. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to start to put things together on that one. Now, if we look at the yellow and we go to the box at the right, Banquo moves on to thinking about what the witches promised him, that he should be the root and father of many kings. If this were to come true, it would be a wonderful thing for him, because although it means he won't be king himself, his legacy will live on, his name will be part of history. His lineage will have power and success, and that was incredibly important and significant within Elizabethan and Jacobean society. The line that you left, the representation of your gene pool going on, your name being part of history. And he says, their speeches shine. And then down at the bottom, the last 3 lines highlighted, he hopes this will happen and thinks it may do so. Because he says, if what they said to him came true, well, why won't it come true to me? Why would what they prophesied for him be accurate, but what they said to me, it wouldn't? So he starts to get excited. He says, and set me up in hope. He starts to be excited about this. But then he stops himself as he hears others approach. So what does that show? The fact that he starts to hope. He doesn't make any plans. He's not thinking about any action. Okay? And as soon as he hears other people, he stops himself. He starts to kind of go, no, need to stop. Don't want to go down that line. How does that differ from Macbeth? Okay, think about the position Macbeth is in when he gives some of those asides showing his ambition. Think about what Macbeth is willing to do. Think about the fact that Macbeth won't just trust what the witches say. He puts it, he makes sure it comes to pass. He actively moves to make it happen. And then, the very next scene, okay, sorry, I paused there. The very next scene sees Macbeth and Banquo meet for the first time since Duncan's murder. Now, I'm not going to watch this YouTube clip with you because obviously that would be silly. But what I want you to do is I want you to, if you can, I don't know if you'd be able to kind of copy it from this YouTube tutorial. If not, write it down and then re-key it in to the search, and because this is a really good little clip. I'm hoping it's still up on YouTube. It was the last time I checked, but sometimes they do bring them down, but fingers crossed at the moment it will be there. But before you watch that YouTube clip, before you answer these questions on the slide, I want us to just briefly talk through and make a few little annotations into the dialogue between Macbeth and Banquo. Okay, so Macbeth, here's our chief guest. Okay, so if you're calling Banquo your chief guest, you're saying he's very important. Okay, that's quite flattering. Okay, you're bigging him up. Okay, so we've got some flattery going on here. Now that may be true. We know that Banquo and Macbeth are very close. We know they were both brilliant warriors together. We know that Banquo was almost as gallant and heroic in that battle at the beginning as Macbeth was. So that might be completely honest, but in the back of your mind, contemplate: could it be a bit of manipulation? Lady Macbeth, If he had been forgotten, it had been as a gap in our great feast, and all thing unbecoming. Tonight we hold a solemn supper, sir, and I request your presence. Okay, formal dinner, solemn supper. Basically, they're celebrating the fact that Macbeth is now king. Banquo, let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with a most indissoluble tie that ever knit. So he's saying they can't be broken. They are forever connected. They've had this friendship for so long. They are loyal soldiers. He's saying, you know, I won't break away from you now. And think about that. If Banquo thinks that Macbeth may have murdered Duncan, he also knows full well that Macbeth knows he's the only person that knew about the prophecy. If Banquo's smart, Banquo knows that Macbeth might be a bit dubious of him. So by saying that he's, you know, forever knit to him, he's, you know, he's reaffirming his loyalty, he's reaffirming to Macbeth, you know, you can trust me. Yet we also just heard as an audience that Banquo is actually thinking that Macbeth might be a murderer. And not just any murderer, but the murderer of a king, regicide. Okay, so make these annotations as we go through. Then Macbeth, ride you this afternoon? Innocent question. Could there be more to it? Banquo, aye, my lord. And then Macbeth, we should have else desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and prosperous in this day's council, but we'll take tomorrow. Is it far you ride? So he said, are you going for a ride? Not that unusual. Banquo says yes. Then he tells us, oh, if you hadn't been, I wanted some advice. But you know what? It's fine. Your advice is really good, but I'll just wait till tomorrow. So, would that make his first question suspicious? He's asked if he's going for a ride, and then he clarifies, oh, well, I wanted to talk to you, that's why I'm asking it. So, nothing seems suspicious. But then instantly, he follows it with another question. Is it far you ride? Banquo, as far, my lord, as will fill up the time twixt this and supper. So he's saying, I'll ride as far as I can get in order to be able to kind of, between now and the time of supper, to be able to get back in time for supper. So, go not my horse the better, I must become a borrower of the night for a dark hour or twain. So he's saying, you know, it could end up taking me into when it gets dark, but only for an hour, maximum 2. And then Macbeth, fail not our feast. My lord, I will not. So he said he's going to go far enough that he can get back in time for supper. But then he said, but, you know, got my horse the better, okay? If my horse can't go fast enough to achieve that, then I might actually end up, you know, not coming back till it's been dark for an hour or 2. Now that then gives a sense of we're not quite sure how far he'll go or how long he'll be gone for. So Macbeth kind of piles on a little bit of time pressure here, and he says, fail not our feast. He's already said he's the chief guest, he wants him there. So he said, well, you know, don't go so far that you won't make it back for the dinner. Banquo, my lord, I will not. So I think it's key. We've all read the play. We know what Macbeth is planning. It's key to really look at these questions in this dialogue. Can we see Macbeth being manipulative here? Is he being very cunning? Why does he want to know what Banquo is doing? Why does he want to know how far he's going? Why does he want to try and make sure that he's back? He doesn't go for too long and he's not back too late. Well, if you're planning to have somebody killed, you kind of need to know where they are. And if you're planning on having somebody killed, you don't really want to be doing it close to everybody else, do you? You want it to be away. So this could all be very clever manipulation from Macbeth. Then he says, we hear our bloody cousins are bestowed in England and in Ireland, not confessing their cruel parricide. Remember, parricide is a murder of your father. Who is it that could have murdered their father? Well, who's been murdered? Duncan. So who would it have to be in order to be parricide? It would have to be Duncan's sons, wouldn't it? Okay. Why is he called the bloody cousins? Well, he's called the bloody cousins because he's propagating the idea that these are the two that ordered the murder of Duncan. Therefore, they're stained with Duncan's blood. Okay, bestowed, kind of hiding, living. So one we know has gone to England and one has gone to Ireland. But he says they're not confessing. So they're in Ireland and they're in England, but they're claiming that the murder of Duncan was not their doing. He says, filling their hearers with strange invention, telling people. Okay, he's calling it strange invention because he's trying to imply that what it is they're suggesting is ridiculous. It wouldn't have happened. It's, it's a really weird and strange thing that they come up with. Okay, now what is it that is this strange invention? But of that tomorrow, when therewithal we shall have cause to state that craving us jointly. Hie you to horse, adieu, till you return at night. Goes Fleance with you. So he's going to change the subject, okay? And he's saying that, hie your horse, adieu, till you return tonight. Go off, enjoy your ride, see you later, till you come back this evening. And then goes Fleance with you. Well, why does he need to know that? Fleance, do we all remember? Banquo's son. Why would Fleance be significant to Macbeth? How does Fleance come into the prophecy? Why might Fleance be something that Macbeth would have a problem with? Think about it. Banquo, I, my good lord, our time does call upon us. Macbeth, I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I do commend you to their backs. Farewell. Let every man be master of his time till 7 at night to make society. Till the sweeter welcome, we will keep ourselves till supper time alone. While then, God be with you. So Macbeth sends him off. Okay, he says, let every man be master of their time. Do what you want between now and 7 o'clock when it's the formal dinner. Okay, but he's been quite clever, hasn't he? The very short, very simple questions, kind of always dropping them in amongst another little piece of information, trying to make them very subtle. He's trying to stop it be like a series of questions. He's drawing other bits of dialogue in to kind of hide and be careful and subversive about the information he's trying to get out of Banquo. And all very simple questions, no sense of urgency about them. Okay, interesting. Get those annotations done. Then watch the clip of Act 3, Scene 1. Okay, read the speech that Macbeth gives from Exit 7. Okay, bring them before us. And then Rents. Write this question out and answer it. How is Macbeth feeling at this moment? Summarise. Look at all of the different parts of that speech he gives. How do we think he's feeling? Yellows. How do you know how he is feeling? What 2 quotes show us best? So you're doing the red one, you're saying how he's feeling, but then you're supporting that with 2 quotes and saying, why do they show us that? And then greens, I want you to do what the reds and yellows have done, then, and purples, sorry, greens and purples, then I want you to look at the images Shakespeare uses in his language when Macbeth is speaking. For example, a fruitless crown. Why does he use these types of images? What correlates? What do you notice about all of the images? What stands out to you? Why do you think these specific images will have been used? Now I'm just going to quickly read you through the speech that you're going to see, obviously, when you watch the clip, that I want you to read through yourself and that you're going to be answering these questions on. To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valour to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then prophet-like they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren sceptre in my grip. Thence to be wretched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, For Banquo's issue I filed my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan I have murdered. Put rancours in the vessel of my peace only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seed of Banquo kings. Rather than so, come fate into the list, and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? So I want you to pause this, I want you to watch the clip, and then I want you to do those tasks. Doesn't matter if they're quite difficult, okay? Doesn't matter if they're a little bit challenging. Do what you can with them, and then what comes next will give you a little bit of help and a little bit of support to go back and make some corrections or add some elements in. But do please pause first, because I want you to really have a try and think about it for yourself. See what you can do from watching and reading and thinking about that speech before getting the assistance. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide now. So, to be thus is nothing but to be safely thus. So first we'll look through this slide and see how you can use it to help and improve the work you just did on the questions. Then use this to annotate this speech with. Okay. So in this quote, Macbeth claims his current state means nothing because he needs to feel safe, i.e. he feels unsafe in the idea that this could be taken from him. And it could be taken from him in a couple of ways. He knows full well that he murdered Duncan. He knows full well that if that ever came out, he wouldn't be left as king. Okay, he would be stripped of his titles and crown. He would be sentenced to death. So would Lady Macbeth. Okay, and somebody else would take over as king. So he knows that in terms of the way he got the crown, he's unsafe. He also knows that Banquo is the only person that may really have a solid argument in terms of suspicion because of the prophecy. But also, where else might he not be safe? If we think about what was really important for a king at that time, it was to have a son, because a son was a guaranteed heir to carry on your throne, to carry on your lineage. And he doesn't have a son. And he knows that that prophecy stated that the crown was going to go to Banquo's sons. So there's kind of a dual meaning of what this safety could be that Macbeth is worried about. He says, our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. He claims to fear him and the prophecy given to him by the witches. Okay, so our fears in Banquo stick deep. Again, double. He's got multiple reasons to fear Banquo, hasn't he? One, Banquo is smart. Banquo knew about the prophecies. Banquo is a good, loyal soldier. And he knows that because he fought with him. So he's got those aspects to fear him, those reasons to question him. And he says, and in his royalty of nature, he's noble, he's honourable, he's stuck loyal. Therefore, is he going to be so loyal to Duncan that he wouldn't accept and that he would kind of work against Macbeth? That's one possible. But also, he fears Banquo because Banquo's the one who has said, okay, in one way you won't be as great as Macbeth because you'll never be king, but in another way you'll be far greater because you will be the starting point for a line, not just one king, but for king after king after king. His descendants, his bloodline, his name will rule on. So that's another way and another reason that Macbeth is fearing Banquo. Okay. And then there is none but he whose being I do fear. Who's the he? Banquo. And under him my genius is rebuked. So indeed Macbeth says he fears no one except Banquo, because he is the only one that can damage his genius or his guiding spirit. He could destroy his name, his reputation. He's the one that's got something that could be used against Macbeth. And then he says, upon my head they placed a fruitless crown and put a barren sceptre in my grip. Now, because Banquo's children will be kings, as prophesied by the witches, Macbeth suggests that this means he will have no children of his own. We know he doesn't have any children at the moment. We know he did have a child and that child died. And therefore he has a fruitless crown and a barren sceptre. Images associated with infertility and not being able to have children. So it's all related to the fact that his anxiety, his distress, his frustration is the fact that he isn't going to be able to produce an heir to carry on his lineage. It's all going to go to Banquo's children. And this builds and builds for even more sense of his frustration, his regret as his speech goes on. He says, "Thence to be wretched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding." But Beth uses really aggressive verbs here, wretched, to suggest Banquo's children will forcibly remove the crown from Macbeth and his unlineal hand. Okay. So he sees himself not just being, not just having Banquo's children take on the throne after him, but he actually sees them taking it from him. He sees himself being usurped by Banquo's children. And he says, "Put rancors in the vessel of my peace, only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seed of Banquo kings." Macbeth reflects that he has ruined his peace of mind, because what is he full of now? Macbeth is full of guilt, isn't he? He's full of anxiety over what he's done. He constantly sees that image of Duncan. He knows the damage that he's committed to his eternal soul. And he's saying that his peace of mind, his tranquility, his sense of honour in himself, he's got rid of. Okay, he's lost because of what he did to Duncan. And he's saying that it's only for them. The people that are going to benefit are Banquo's children. And when he talks of the eternal jewel, he alludes to a couple of things this could be looked at. He alludes to his place in heaven, because obviously he committed regicide. Now, the king is appointed in Jacobean society. Remember the great chain of being. They believe the king is anointed and appointed by God. They are God's representation on earth. So therefore, if you decide that you're going to kill that king and put yourself in there, you've cut your connection to God. God is not going to forgive that. You won't get into heaven. So the eternal jewel could be representing his place in heaven, but the eternal jewel could also kind of be a reference to his soul. He tainted and damaged his soul, both meaning the same thing. He's cut off his religious connection. He's cut off his connection to God. Okay, and given to the enemy of the common man. The enemy of the common man is the devil. He's referencing the idea there that, he's destined for hell. Okay, and he has done all of this, and all it's going to lead to is all of this pain and suffering he's caused himself is just going to be so that Banquo's children can become kings. Okay, he said to make them kings, and also them. He's talking about and kings plural. He's really clear on the idea that this will be a line. He's not just thinking of Fleance, but he's thinking of Fleance's children and their children. And then he said, "If it be so, for Banquo's issue I have filed my mind. For them the gracious Duncan I have murdered." So finally he says he's killed gracious. He's still, look at the language that he uses around Duncan, gracious. He's still acknowledging what a good king Duncan was, even though he's murdered him, and murdered him in such a brutal way. He stabbed him in his sleep, and multiple times. But he's still looking at Duncan as this solid king, as this, ideal of a king. And I think that really reinforces how much regret he's got and how much guilt he's got about this. And he's done all of that just to help Banquo's children become king. He's very frustrated, he's bitter, he's angry, he's full of regret. He's full of a sense of unsatisfaction in this speech. Make sure that you've gone back through to double check your answers to those earlier questions and you've used these notes to support that, but then also gone to your own copies, because remember you need these annotated for your revision in year 11, gone to your own copies and added these annotations in. Make sure, you've got those key quotes annotated. And now, I want you to go back to your mask from the start, okay? We're going to look at Macbeth's side of the mask this time. So Reds, this time use your notes from the lesson to draw how Macbeth is feeling at this moment. Again, you could use words or images. Yellows, you're going to have done the same task as the Reds, and then you're going to use images from Macbeth's speech as part of your drawings and support that with key quotes. And greens and purples, is Macbeth right? You're going to do the first two bits, sorry, I forgot to say that. Is Macbeth right to be angry and resentful at Banquo and the prophecy foretold to him? If so, why? Why is he justified in that frustration and anger? And if not, why isn't he? Okay, so you're going to do the first two tasks, and then in a little paragraph underneath the mask or on the next page, if you haven't got room, you're going to do that question. Okay, I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. I hope you all thoroughly enjoy the half term. I know I'm going to enjoy not using an alarm clock for a week. If you've got any questions, please send me an email, or I would take a question up on the post in the Teams, but I don't think that alerts me, so I might not know you've done that. You're better off, if you've got questions, emailing the question just to be on the safe side. Have a lovely time till you hear next from me. Goodbye, Year 10.